Hello and welcome to today's Future Ready webinar. I'm Tom Murray, the Director of Innovation for Future Ready Schools, a project of the Alliance for Excellent Education located in Washington, D.C. Future Ready Schools is a collaboration between the Alliance and a vast coalition of over 60 other national and regional organizations. The goal of Future Ready Schools is to maximize learning opportunities and help school districts move quickly towards student-centered learning. The effort provides districts with resources and support to ensure that local technology and digital learning plans align with instructional best practices, are implemented by highly trained teachers, and maximize learner-centered experiences for all students, particularly those from traditionally underserved communities. The hashtag for today's event, as it always is Future Ready. Thanks for making an investment in time and joining us today. I'm your host on this webinar on learning from adversity and celebrating innovation in 2020. With me today, and we are so excited to have 6 members of our amazing Future Ready advisory team. What an honor it is to have all of you join us today. Let's do some quick introductions if we could. Jerry, over to you.
Hi, I'm Jerry Almondar, Superintendent, Santa Ana Unified School District in Orange County, Southern California.
Awesome. And Jerry represents our school board strand. Thanks for leading that work. Let's go over to Sine.
Hi, I'm Sine Bell. I'm a middle school principal in Katy ISD, suburb of Houston, Texas.
Awesome. And Sine is the lead advisor for our principal strand. Over to Tracy.
I am Tracy Johnson. I am an English teacher and director of innovation in a little bitty district, Rova in Illinois.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. And over to Matt.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Miller, Superintendent, Lakota Local Schools, just north of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Awesome. And Tracy's part of our coaches strand. Matt's part of our district strand. How about Adam?
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Adam Fayal, Director of Technology and Media Services for the Newton County School District, also known as the Hollywood of the South, and it is a pleasure to be here.
Awesome having you, Adam. Adam is the lead advisor for our IT strand. And last but not least, over to you, Josh.
Yeah, Josh Stumpenhorst here. I serve as a Learning Commons Director, which is a fancy way of saying librarian, in the Naperville Public School District, which is just a suburb of Chicago, Illinois.
And as you may have guessed, Josh represents our librarian strand. So first, on behalf of Future Ready Schools, we want to commend the amazing work that's happening in our schools across the country and really has been throughout the pandemic. Once again, educators have stepped up to the plate and really have been staring adversity in the face each and every day. So what I'm going to ask you each to do is take some time, if you would, to each kind of highlight some of the journey that you've been on in 2020 from your different roles, small districts, large districts, obviously different roles inside the school districts, but then also maybe what you've seen kind of in your area in the strand. So let's begin with Jerry. Jerry, obviously you're a superintendent, very large district in California. Talk to us a little bit about the journey that you've seen and maybe from the school board end strand, just what you've seen around the country with school boards as well.
Well, I think it's been challenging because the information that comes, like everybody else is experiencing, changes pretty much on a daily, if not a weekly basis. So the policy issue has been really tough in the sense that in our area in Orange County, we have a variety of different income levels, and the COVID rates impact each city within the county differently. And so for us personally, we're in a high socioeconomically disadvantaged part, surrounded by high income areas. And we have remained in the community spread aspect of COVID since March. So we have not been able to go back to a hybrid model. And we're experiencing the challenges, the pressures from our communities as a governance team to get back to school, the fear of it not being safe, and the unknown of the contamination rates in young children and adults. So it's been a roller coaster ride. We had some success as the COVID rates in our region stabilized for a period of time. And then after the holiday break, they started to spike again. And we had to pull back some of our learning labs that we placed at the school sites that we had a lot of success with. And we were just so sorry we had to do that. But it's been challenging. I know a lot of my colleagues across the country are experiencing the same thing, but we'll get through this.
Yes, let's go to one of your colleagues over in Ohio. Matt, talk to us as another superintendent. What are you seeing in Ohio in terms of the journey that you all have been through over the last 9 months here?
Well, Tom, I think it's a little bit of what Jerry was saying. None of us have this figured out. In Ohio and just like across the country, everyone is either remote or virtual or a hybrid or in person, and nobody is wrong and everybody is right. It's whatever situation is fitting them at the moment in time. In Ohio, things are a little bit easier for us back in March when we had our shutdown because we didn't have a choice. I mean, everybody went remote. That's the hand that we were dealt, so to speak. And now districts came out of that in August and had to decide what was best for their community, what was best for Lakota. And it's still the best for Lakotas. We gave our parents an option. We gave them an option to go virtual or to come in person. And so we are in our 18th week of in-person learning. I didn't know if we'd make it this far, 18 days versus 18 weeks for that matter. But it's not been easy. And so, again, there's not been a clear path or a clear direction on how this virus is going and how it's affecting our families, our students, and our staff. And that's been the hardest part. So we're still in a state of flux. I think we're going to be in this for a while. I know that we're all rushing madly in some cases for a vaccine, and I hope that that helps, but that's still going to take some time for us. And so the grace that we gave our teachers and ourselves, quite frankly, back in March, I think we need to keep that going and continue that and know that we're all making the best decisions that we can for our own communities and for our own kids and our staff. And we know that that's hard, but we're going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah, certainly well said. Let's go down to Georgia. Adam, let's talk about the IT strand a little bit for you. You're somebody that when the pandemic hit, you were on the ground getting out devices, connectivity, kids without access. You've got a different lens here. Tell us a little about your journey.
Well, let me just say I'm happy I'm not sitting in the big chair because I make the decisions, but then the men and women who sit in that big chair, the superintendent, they have to bear the brunt of a lot of the stuff that's happening. And I know when all of this happened in my district, we were one where we weren't one-to-one yet. We were doing a hybrid model where we were working toward in this cart shared kind of environment, and all that went out of the window when all this hit. And it was one where we really had to rely on our team to come out of the shelter in place and hand out devices and really try their best to get as many students connected as possible. We wouldn't have been able to do that without some of our partners. I mean, we had some of our telecommunications providers really step up and provide resources for our students. But even with that, we still are finding that there's just that gap, that homework gap that we've talked about previously, where there's just not enough access to people. And this is one of those things that have impacted people, no matter their political affiliation, no matter their race, no matter their income, because we have people who are in areas where there's internet connectivity, but they can't afford it. We have people who could afford it, but there's not any internet connectivity there. So one thing that we saw with this pandemic, it really put a magnifying glass on that gap that we have, that of connectivity that's really facing our nation.
Yeah, the opportunity gaps for sure. Access, equity and access, equity and opportunity really have been put on the front burners here. And they, in some sense, they should have been for a long, long time. And many districts have prioritized it, but there was no other opportunity this time. We needed to make sure that was front and center. And you've certainly been leading the way there. Let's jump to the building level and go over to Sine if we could. Sine, here you are, building principal, and you're dealing with it at a school level, trying to work with your teachers, reassured some of your teachers, also getting direct from district office. So talk to us from your lens about your journey.
You know, I think it's been a roller coaster, and it truly is the true definition of middle management, because you are receiving, you know, what you get from the community and from central office, and like, this is how we're going to do these types of things. And then you have teachers, well, how are we going to do this? And we think it should be done this way. And you're right in the middle. And so really managing what we are, you know, supposed to execute according to the way we've been directed, but then also taking care of the people that are the implementers has been a big challenge in trying to handle all of the emotions. And people bring every day. It's not just about teaching and learning, right? It's the most important thing that we do, but it's not the only thing that we do. And so when you're the principal and you're in the middle of everything, trying to take care of both sets, some days I didn't know if I was coming or going. And at the heart of that, though, is our students. And so keeping everybody focused on, guys, this is about our kids, and it's about taking care of our communities, but also honoring that everyone is bringing their own internal struggles and their baggage to work with them every day, and still saying, yes, I have you over here, we're going to get this and we're going to take care of that, and keeping the ship moving. School is one of the greatest institutions that our nation has, and the principals have kept it moving by making sure that everybody's okay, that everyone has what they need. And so it's been a challenge, but it's one that you answer the call, because that's what you do in the times when you don't know. You still know that teaching and learning and taking care of kids has to happen.
Absolutely. It's educators certainly have answered the call. Tracy, let's go over to you. You kind of have a foot in both spots here, coaching teachers a bit, director of innovation, kind of leading some from district office, but then also in the classroom as well. Talk to us about your unique lens there.
Well, first of all, I feel very fortunate that we already had the Future Ready process in place. So we already had stakeholders who, from every group that we have, parents, community members, students, administrators, teachers, who are already used to being involved in big decisions in our district. And so we could immediately go to that Future Ready team. We named it the transition team at that point. And so every decision we made from, starting March 13th, we had input from all of our stakeholders. And I will tell you, at one point when we were discussing whether or not to go back, a kid very close to my heart on a Zoom meeting said, "Your boy ain't wearing a mask, Mrs. Johnson." And I said, "Well, your boy is wearing a mask or he's not coming to school." And so that was I think a really good process, but it meant a lot of hard conversations. We did end up being able to be in person 5 days a week with the option to be remote. So we are here till 1:30, and then from 1:30 to 3:15, we have time with our remote students. And so we've been very fortunate that we've been able to do that. And I think coaches, all the meetings I've been in with coaches, they're either extremely busy or they feel like they're just kind of spinning their wheels because they don't want to put things on teachers' plates. And so they're trying to take things off teachers' plates. They've got all this information, all these things that they want to share, but they also know that teachers are extremely stressed out and busy. And so it seems like it's one or the other. They're either swamped or they wish they could do more.
Yeah, well said. And Josh, over to you, really at that ground level, working with students every day. Talk to us from your lens.
Oh, I tell you what, one of the things that in my world, we've been fighting hard to justify our existence since this pandemic started in a lot of ways. I talked to a lot of my fellow librarians, and you see places cutting them out of the buildings and saying, well, we don't have library time anymore because the kids aren't in the building. We don't need librarians. And then, schools, unfortunately, when you take things away, they never come back. And so a lot of my fellow colleagues, we have been fighting tooth and nail to show our value, which seems ridiculous that we have to do that, but that's a reality of our job. And I feel very thankful to work in the district and to listen to Sine talk about the middle management. Oh my goodness. When I talked to my principal about the words I won't say publicly online here about what's coming down the hill to them from the district office and how they have to make it palatable to the teachers because they know that they're kind of stuck. And then superintendents are getting stuff from the state and from Fed. We all know how this train runs down the track. But anytime we see our leaders looking at what's happening in the library and happening in the classroom level, that means a lot to us. And so my role really has just been, when I go to work, I don't know what I'm gonna do any given day. We have teachers who are out with COVID. And so I'm a overpaid kinder care in the library, keeping tabs on kids. There are days where I'm doing remote lessons, for my makerspace or doing book talk. So it's kind of like, the catch-all. And I'm gonna pick on Sine again, because I think we forget it's about the kids. And there is a global pandemic. We got to take care of ourselves, all of that stuff. But I worry sometimes that we forget it's the kids' experience, that should trump everything. And I don't say that to be a martyr or any of that kind of nonsense, because I don't buy into that. But we can't forget that that's what this is all about. And as somebody who has 2 children in my own house and going through what they're going through, I'm reminded of that too often. And in the library world, I just try to create a safe space, and you can do that digitally, you can do that in virtual, and even the small groups that we have in our building right now, because we're have about 10% of the kids that are in the building on a daily basis. And I don't care what they're working on. They just need some other adult saying, hey, what's going on with you today? And so anytime I can do that with a kid, I'm telling you, that's why I got into this gig to begin with. So I keep doing that. but we're all making it work. That's that's what we do, and that's what we'll continue to do until, as Matt said, the end isn't necessarily right there just because we announced some vaccines. And so we're going to keep playing this game and doing what we can do for kids for the foreseeable future, and that's the reality we're all living with.
Well, and I can tell you, having known each of you for a long time, you are some of the most kid-centered people that I've ever met. And that's why we've asked you to be here, to be able to work through these pieces. And I want to dive into, we've got so much anxiety, so much fear. It is so real on the outside of our walls. And anybody that's ever taken part in Future Ready knows that leadership and school culture are the foundation of everything we do. And I mean, let's face it, everything has been amplified throughout the pandemic, right? People are waking up in such fear, anxieties at an all-time high. That's the reality. And as school and district leaders, my question to you all, and I want to start at the school level here and then kind of work our way back up to district office. How can leaders create a culture where people want to be? So Josh and Tracy, thinking about it from a student end, and Josh, you started to dive into that a little bit right there. How do we create an environment in the midst of this pandemic where our kids want to be, right? And then moving it up, Sine, maybe you could talk about some of those pieces around our teachers and our kids. And then the district level, you've got that whole district perspective. How do we create that culture? So Josh and Tracy, let's start with you, kind of that building level, thinking about our students. How in the midst of a pandemic can educators like yourselves create environments where people want to be?
Sure, I'll jump in here. I don't think, pandemic or not a pandemic, I don't think the rules change when it comes to creating engaging spaces for kids. It might look different. I might put a Spaceballs background in a Zoom just to get the kids like, hey, what is that? To start a silly conversation. But the reality is the work you ask kids to do, the relationships you build with kids, that hasn't changed. And any teacher that says, I can't do it this way, you just haven't figured it out yet. And there are ways to do it, and for us in a junior high building, the toughest group that I've struggled with is our sixth graders, because they're the new ones to the building. My seventh and eighth graders, they know the terrible dad jokes I'm going to tell them. They know what I'm all about, and I can call on them and connect with them. But it's those sixth graders that haven't even set foot in our building, and being able to provide opportunities. I'm the athletic director, so we did outdoor intramurals because that was the only thing we were allowed to do. And just seeing 66 graders come and playing kickball had nothing to do with academics, but they created those bonds and that environment to say, hey, this is a place I want to be. This is somewhere I want to be. So, I mean, I know the rules change a little bit, but the game's still the same. If you build it, they will come. If you create those environments, the kids want to be there. And it's about those relationships, which is the most redundant cliche thing to say, but it's the truth. And that's why it keeps being said. It's about those relationships and how you build them, with the kids, and they want to be there for you because they know you care about them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Something I say a lot is we've always, the question has been out there for a while. If kids didn't have to come to your room, would they still? And at this point, they don't. I mean, a lot of them, they could choose not to, and there's not a lot we can do about it. So those relationships are super important. And something that I have just said over and over again to both teachers about students and my administrators about my teachers is empathy. We have to have empathy. None of us have been in this situation before. I've never been a student in a pandemic. My administrators have never been teachers in a pandemic. And so I think it's really important to remember that, and that the game has changed. And before you make any decision, before you make any judgment, put yourself in that person's shoes and think about, how is this for them? What are they dealing with? What are those students dealing with at home? They can't turn their mic on, or they can't turn their camera on. And instead of being angry that they're not doing that, think about why, but what's going on in their house that they can't do that. And, you have a teacher who's so anxious to come to school because they've got a parent to take care of at home. And every day that they come into school is another day that they're risking their parents' lives. And put yourself in that situation before you're just angry that they don't want to be at school. And I think that that empathy goes such a long way in making people feel more comfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sine, how about the teacher? Because you're balancing the teacher end and the student end as well, Sine. So talk to us from a principal end.
Tracy couldn't have said it better. Empathy. I assume good intentions. People are doing the best that they can. And, just really clarity has been critical. People just want to know, even if it's, hey guys, I really don't know. This is what I'm thinking. This is what is a possibility, but just really being clear with what information I do have, and what we could possibly think 2 to 3 steps ahead. And everybody is going through this together. And so as a principal, I'm also a mother, and I'm also a caretaker for my mother-in-law. So I have multiple perspectives, and I get when people are bringing those things to the table. They don't leave the baggage in the door. We bring all of that. So, giving people that space to be themselves and to kind of share, these are things that I'm struggling with, these are reservations that I have, and listening. And sometimes I can't change any of that. I can't take any of that away. I can listen to that and say, well, for the purposes of what we have going on at work, this is kind of what we have to do. This is where we still have to go. And people get that. Like, they get that. I honor and listen. I say, this is our groundwork. This is our foundation. This is our plan. This is where I need you. Are you in? If you are, I got you. What do you need for me to support you in order for you to feel safe at work, in order for you to feel, and not just physically safe, but emotionally safe, so that they can come and be their best selves each day. And so having a lot of conversations, we, like Josh said, relationships, yeah, it's cliche, but it's not. We're in the service industry. That's what we do. If the relationships are not right, there's no way. If you didn't have quality culture before the pandemic, and then trying to run your school and your district in the middle of a pandemic without a good culture, oh my goodness, that I just couldn't imagine that. So that is so critical to any type of transformational change, pandemic or not. That's key in knowing who your people are, being really clear with what you're communicating, and being empathetic, and assuming people are doing the best that they can at all times.
Thanks, Sine. As we jump over to the district level and creating these cultures where people want to be, so many nuggets of wisdom already. Adam, you also come at it from a department end. You're leading people that are going off into your buildings, working with computers, and also connecting with families, bringing them there and bringing them back. Talk to us a little bit about from your lens.
Yeah, I think Sine, and you hit the nail right on the head with that. It's definitely about what that culture that you have with your team, because I know when this all started, we had to, I mentioned this earlier, that the team had to come out of the shelter in place. So this was when it was the height of no one knew what was going on. We were saying, hey, come out your house and hand out devices to people. And, I don't know, you may get COVID and the lightning may strike you. I don't know, but you know what? It's cool. My team didn't hesitate. I mean, as soon as I put that out there, they were like, cool. I mean, they really wanted us to get out of the house so they could see each other, because we had such a culture of family. They missed seeing the team. And also, I think as a leader, is creating that environment where it was non-judgmental, where if there was someone on the team that felt some kind of way, it was okay. And they knew we were okay with that, because it's like, hey, somebody, what their wife was expecting and they didn't feel comfortable. Cool. As the kids say, keep it 100. I mean, I kept it 100% with my team, and they knew if they had an issue, just let me know, and it was okay. And nobody was going to say, oh, Adam's not coming out here and I'm out here. That wasn't, but it was that established relationship we already had with our team, where everyone knew that they were going to go out there and do what was best for the students in the district and will do what's right for each other. And they trusted that I wasn't going to put them in a situation that I wouldn't put myself in. And I was out there handing out devices with them. Because they knew, I told them, hey, I'm not going to go out there and do it if I don't feel safe. And if I don't feel safe, I'm going to be your advocate. And I'm going to tell the superintendent, hey, Soup, we don't feel comfortable doing this. We have to have something else in place. So they knew I had their back as well. So I think as a leader of a department, and as I said, as a principal, superintendent, the biggest thing is your team has to know that you have their back. Once they know that you have their back, then they'll go to war with you, no matter what the situation is.
So I'm going to go over to two of the best culture building superintendents that I know, Matt and Jerry. And you guys are in such a unique scenario where there you are leading the way. You've got every employee in the district looking up towards you. It's easy to point the finger, right? It's easy to point it this way as opposed to looking inside. Then you've got the community side. You've got the school board side. You've got all these different facets. How in the world does the soup, and Matt, we'll start with you this time. How in the world, as a superintendent, do you help create that culture where people want to be?
Thanks for letting me go ahead of Jerry, because this is a very complex question. Tom, and you've heard me say this before, I'm only as good as my team. And my executive team at Central Office has been phenomenal. We were meeting every day, weekends, every single day, sometimes twice a day, just trying to plan for feeding kids, for connecting with kids. And then third thing was starting the school year. And so I like the dynamics of sort of the team and the sort of the thought process that we use. And it's not like, it's not certainly not top down, and I can't do the things that I have to do without my team. So we listen, we talk things out. Sometimes, to your point, Tom, I do call the play, get the input and then call the play, and we'll see what happens. But I think everybody in the Zoom, we're all doing things differently this year than what we were doing a year ago. So December 17th of 2019 looks a lot different than December 17th of 2020, obviously. And everybody watching the Zoom too, we're all doing different things. I don't care what the role is. We all have added things because we're trying to survive, literally trying to survive and get through this. And so when I hear Sine talk about, sort of that middle management role from central office, and I'm thinking, okay, how do my principals think, and what kind of spots do I put them in? And so that's good for me. And Josh kind of got me thinking about, we're all doing things differently now. We all have to adapt, but and he said it too. I think he was the one that said it. It's about relationships and it's about the connections that we take. I think too that one of the things that we have to do as well is give ourselves grace. And so just even at the superintendent level, because we're 9 months into a pandemic or whatever it is, while we're trying to educate, and there are ups and downs to this, and no one has it figured out right. So we know that our people are getting emotional, no matter what their roles are, but so are we. And so sometimes we need those sort of confidants to sort of pull us off a little bit and say, you need a little bit of a break and refocus too. And so I think that helps. And so I think now more than ever, we can't have that top-down philosophy about the way things have to be. And I know we have to play the political game a little bit, no matter what state we're in. But we also have to listen to ourselves and to the health experts and just try to keep people up. The kids have been resilient, and for the most part, and certainly there are ups and downs and ebbs and flows to that. But really, it seems like our focus has to be on those that are taking care of the kids, and that's our staff and teachers. And so that's not an easy thing to do during all this, and it's a give and take. And when we say things like we're all in this together, that might sound a little bit like a cliche, and I get that, but really we are in this. And so doing things like this, having a webinar like this through Future Ready, where we get to share some of this and sort of feed off each other's synergies, I think is helpful, at least for me.
Yeah, I'll repeat what Matt said. We're all in this together, and for me, there are no titles when it comes to dealing with this crisis. So we have to rely on everybody. And Shanae, talking about, like Matt said, the middle person, you could substitute principal and put superintendent, and we feel the same way. We're getting information from the state, we're getting information from our local governing boards, and we feel like we're in the middle, but yet people are looking for us to make these decisions. And selfishly, I think, when I came to Santa Ana, I was only here 3 months before COVID hit. So I'm coming to a new district. 3 months in, there are some site administrators that I have not been physically in a room together with, that I have not met physically. And so selfishly, having to try and cope with this craziness is, I thought, Zoom makes it easy for everybody to come together. We're a large geographical area, so it literally would take a few hours to get to one part of our district, given the central office area. But Zoom brings everybody together in a very short period of time. So, for me as a superintendent, to navigate this crisis and to help guide my decision-making process, I've had to interact with as many groups as I possibly can, not only to find out how they're doing and develop and nurture those relationships, but also selfishly to nurture my capacity and my confidence in my ability to help lead and co-lead this district. Because, as Matt said, man, we're struggling too. And we're people too, and we have a lot of issues like everybody else, but ultimately people look to the superintendents to kind of have the solutions. And honestly, we don't always have those solutions. And there'll be many times when I've been on my way home and I'm thinking, what in the world am I going to do and how are we going to do this? And, you know, I have to phone a friend. I have a lot of colleagues, some are retired and some are in other districts, and they don't necessarily have the answers, but they're an ear, and they just, you know, constantly keep telling me, hold on, tomorrow will be a better day. And every day I wake up, the next day is a little bit better. So, you know, just that relationship part, the relying on people part, like Matt said, being a part of this process is more of a therapy for me than it is to help educate other people on what to do during this crisis, because we're all dealing with unique situations depending on where we're at geographically and politically. So, but it's comforting to know that regardless of your title, we're all experiencing similar things, and we all know that we'll get through this together.
Yeah, well said, Jerry. And I'm going to ask the next question to the three of you that are at the district level. What I want you to think about as you reflect on 2020 and thinking about some of the lessons learned, you know, you get that broad view from that district level. One thing, COVID, you know, it really pointed out a lot of equity related issues. And as we always say at Future Ready, COVID didn't create equity related issues, but it amplified those that have always existed. You know, front and center, that's an example of something of lessons learned, areas that we're looking and saying, wow, we really got to refocus on those pieces, or maybe we had to reprioritize in certain areas. So for the three of you at the district level, I want you to think about what are some lessons learned, maybe each share a lesson, be vulnerable if you would, and maybe add a celebration to that, maybe something that you're really proud of in that area. So Jerry, let's keep going with you if you would. What's a lesson learned from Santa Ana in your lens, and then and share us that as well.
We weren't as ready as we thought we were, in the sense that our internal capacity, whether it be site administrator or classroom, we weren't as skilled and as future ready as we needed to be with that skill set, and to be able to make this transition as quickly as we needed to. We like to think we were, and we had pockets of success and innovation out there. But I think when the virus hit and we had to shut down, there was a period of time when we were really worried. What surprised me and what humbles me is when that happened, our people's willingness to step up and to learn new things and to do the best that they can do, given the circumstances, to help the kids.
Yeah, thanks for sharing both the vulnerability, but also what you're really proud of there as well. Matt, how about you? Share some lesson learned, and then as Soup, something you're really proud of right now, celebration.
I think probably, Tom, one of the things that we learned was to get feedback early on. We have done, and this is a testament to my awesome PR team and communications team, we've done a lot of surveys of not just our parents, but also of our staff and our students as well. So that we've learned a lot through that process, because, you know, at the administrative level or district leadership level, we'll think that we have this idea, but once you throw it out there and you get some feedback, whether it's just a straight out survey through Google or Thought Exchange or something like that, that helps us. That's helped us form some of our decision-making process. Now, the flip side of that and the hard part of that is sometimes people think, well, if all these comments are coming up, that's what you should do. And so it's not like you throw out a survey and, you know, however it comes back, that's what you go with. You got to take, that's one piece, right? You also have to listen in the midst that we're in. Then you have to listen also to, you know, the teaching leadership team, what their thoughts are, some of the health experts and scientists that we've been listening to too. So it's just one piece. That's something that I think we learned through the process and gotten better at over the past couple of months. In terms of successes, I think survival, and I think just being in person this long and giving our parents an option has been a success. And I was lucky enough this morning to get into 5 buildings. And so that was my success of the day, was to get out into the 5 buildings and to see our kids in action. The staff, I think I talk to and communicate and have that opportunity for them to engage with me through lots of different means. But when I saw the kids, if you didn't see them in a mask or socially distanced, it was a regular week before Christmas winter break. And that was refreshing and uplifting to me.
That's awesome. Adam, talk to us from your lens.
One of the things that we had to look at here in our district, and going back to, I am in Georgia, and right now all eyes are on Georgia. And we had to really embrace that everything that happens in the news happens in people's lives, happens in our students' lives, so we can't run away from it. So one of the things that we really looked at was with our equity and access, it literally became a political issue, within our community. And so it really turned into a time where we really had to educate our community on what it meant to be equitable. It was the conversation, and one of the examples that I used in a presentation to the community was, it's like if you have kids and one of your kids needs braces, you're not going to put braces on your other kid because you put braces on one of them. You're not going to spend $3,000 on the other kid because you spend $3,000 on those braces. No, you're going to get the kid what they need when they need it. And so we had to tell people, hey, we don't have enough hotspots for every kid. We have access for those kids who need it. We're going to do whatever we can to provide for those students that need it. And it's no, we're not giving one community something, we're not giving another part of the community, but it was really having those conversations around that. And I think the success is that we worked on that muscle, if you will. So it's kind of like, we're not there yet, but I think having that tough conversation and having people understand we are working on that muscle in our community. So we're going to be able to build that endurance to actually have more in-depth conversations around equity issues within our community as we continue to grow and really stay true to our mission, which is educational excellence for all students. And so now that I think we're starting to have those conversations, people are really ready to bridge those gaps and understand that, yeah, because this pandemic, it's impacted districts or people in the district who weren't normally impacted by things. And so now they're saying, oh, okay, this is what equity means. Yeah, it's not just the poor kids. It's different people who need different things, and that's what we try to provide. So I think this is definitely a growth opportunity for all stakeholders in our system.
Well said, Adam. I do want to remind our viewers that the hashtag for today's webinar is Future Ready. So heading over to the building level again, I want to get real practical here. You know, as advisors for our different Future Ready strands, I want you to share some concrete strategies, whether they're remote, whether they're in person, whether they're hybrid. You all come at it again with different lenses. Give some things that are working that you're seeing from your lens that you recommend for others in the midst of this pandemic. Talk about some strategies. Today, let's start with you from a building principal end.
So, you know, as a campus leader, you got to think about a lot of different aspects. You got the teaching and learning component. And so finding what teachers need in order to feel successful and that they have the confidence and efficacy to teach online. We have face-to-face, but we also have online learning going on. So there's training that's involved in that and giving them the tools that they need. As Josh said, they may not have figured out yet. And the yet is the caveat, right? It's like, let me help you. And so being able to see that, yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic, check, we own that. Everyone has their feelings that they're bringing to the table, check, yes, we own that. But we still have school going on. What do you need to make sure that you are providing exceptional experiences for kids? So providing teachers the training that they need, providing the social and emotional components that are needed, working with my counseling team, building community. When I think about when we went remote, March 16th, when we just didn't come back after spring break, we had kids that were disconnected physically. They were connected, right? But they were disconnected physically and lost some of that skill set with how you engage and build community. So making sure that we're utilizing the time within the day to have like community circles and to have our advisory program where it's maximized. And so, you know, making sure that we're looking at that component. And then also, how do we continue to offer kids exceptional experiences at school, in our fine arts programs or in our athletic programs, all while keeping kids and teachers and their coaches safe. I think those are the things that I'm most proud of, but then also been very strategic about how we do that, being a shared decision maker, having input from everyone, especially the person that's going to be implementing. You know, all the decisions can't be made from top and then just roll down. You have to be able to have those people that are implementing these decisions come at the table and talk about, this is working really well, this is not, this is what I need. And so I would say just, you know, working collaboratively with everyone that's going to be a part of executing the decision is the biggest concrete example that I can give you. And it's not earth shattering. It's just best practice. It's what you do if you want to get people to own the work. You don't want buy-in, you want ownership. And ownership comes when you're a part of the conversation and moving forward.
Great. And Tracy and Josh, let's go over to you. Tracy, we'll go to you first. Talk to us some real practical strategies that you're seeing working right now.
Okay, so I'm going to put my teacher hat on a little bit for this one. One thing that really just makes me cringe every time I hear it is when someone will say, well, students can't do that. Students won't do that. I heard it with masks. Students won't wear a mask, especially high school students. They won't do that. Give them a chance. And they do. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway I've had is if you respect students enough to like just lay it out for them, like, hey, you may not be afraid of this. You may think that, even if you get it, you're going to, you'll be fine. There are adults in this building who might not be and who are very scared about it. And I laid it out and gave them the respect that I could talk to them honestly. And our students wear their masks. They don't have a problem with it. And I feel that is important with every teaching strategy moving forward is to remember that voice and choice, because just because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean that student voice and student choice should be taken away. A quick example from today, I had something that I could either share with them via the Meet, or I could not share it and we could just all read it together. And I'm like, I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. So what do you guys like better? Do you like it when your teachers share their screen, or do you like it when they give you the link and everybody looks at their own? And it was an overwhelming share your screen. And so I shared my screen, but now that they've got just that little bit more ownership, that they need to pay attention because they asked me to share my screen. And so since they asked me to do that and go take that step, they've got to pay attention. They've got ownership in their learning. So it's just those little things. Every time you can offer a kid a way to get their voice and choice in there, the more they're going to buy in and continue to want to learn from you. Yeah,
certainly well said. And pandemic or not, great strategies right there as well. Josh, how about you?
Yeah, my probably number one strategy is being a little immature. I work in a junior high building and a lot of our teachers are stressed out. So if I need to send somebody a quick meme, get the silhouettes, vinyl cutter out, make a t-shirt that might have something that you wouldn't want to wear in public, but is going to give a teacher a smile on their face, I'm going to do it because I see a lot of our teachers are stressed. I have never in my 18 years in my building, and there's teachers we know that are stressed, if they're 2 seconds late on a Tuesday morning, 5 years ago. But when you see your rock star, your solid people that you would do anything for teachers, and we know who those people are, when you see those people crying and stressed out, you think, okay, what can I do? And so that's one of the strategies is identifying if you're that person that's going to be the goofball, do it, embrace it, because sometimes humor and being able to laugh at the situation, not to minimize what we're going through, is a really important strategy, not just for the students, but for the teachers and the students as well. So that's even like, I do book talks. I share hundreds of books every day with every single kid. And there are books I won't share right now because they are a little too intense, a little too serious. And so I'm trying to share books that are silly. I read the introduction to Miss Bixby's Last Day, which is about this boy Topher who's accusing Rebecca Rotabush of having the cooties, and all these kids are laughing. So it's trying to lighten that mood for kids because some kids are handling this well. Some kids, this is not a big deal. It's just an annoyance. I mean, that's the reality. But for some kids, this is really anxiety filled. This is stressful. And the same goes for teachers. So for me, anything I can do to identify the kid that just needs that pick me up. And as a librarian, my strategy would be is don't shut it down. Get books to kids. Do a curbside pickup. We've been doing that since the second week of school. And we have kids checking books out and reading books. So anything you do, we have our 3D printers running, our laser cutters running. Kids are sending me their SVGs and their STLs. And if you don't know what that is, you can Google it. And I'm printing these things and putting these projects out for kids. So just keep doing what you're doing. You just have to, move with it a little bit. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, so well said. So I want to take a minute. Our time is winding down, and I want to ask y'all to vision forward. I mean, here we are closing out 2020, and let's be real, I don't think anybody's going to be complaining about that, right? So let's vision forward. I want you to think about your strands, think about the work you're all leading each day. What's your vision moving forward to where we really can go? Because, sometimes I'm hearing people say, well, I can't wait to go back to normal. But when we look at it from an education sense, we don't want to go back to normal. There's so many inequities that were there, so many things that had to be changed, that this has really given us opportunities to vision forward. So I'm going to ask y'all a minute or less, give me a little bit of your glimpse of your vision moving forward. Jerry, let's run back over to you.
So I think, it's a combination of, obviously we have to change what we were left, but I think it's a combination of flexible schedule, innovation, project-based. We have to develop policies that allows the flexibility for these things to take place at the governance level, flexible starting and ending times for teachers, things like that. We just have to make sure that we provide multiple opportunities for our students and for our families.
How about you, Matt?
Yes, 100% to what Jerry just said. The only a couple things I would add to that is I hope that moving forward, we still have the networking and the conversations taking place, because we're all making decisions no matter what our role is. We're making brand new decisions, and we're leaning on our colleagues and our professional and personal friends to help us get through this. And I hope that grace and that kind of collaborative spirit moves forward. And then my last piece is somebody owes me 9 months of concerts that I've missed. So I don't want to go back to March 12th or 13th, but if I can get some of those back, I will.
Well said. Adam, how about you?
I want everyone to keep in mind when the hashtags are no longer trending, what are you doing? We've had a whole lot of things that have happened in this calendar year, whether you talk about the election, whether you talk about civil unrest, you talk about COVID, all these things were hot issues during the time, and they've changed where we are because they were important issues at that time. We cannot forget all those things were important for a reason. They're important to our students. They're important to our teachers. So when we bring everybody back, we have to make sure that we're keeping those things there, because if we just put them away, they're going to come right back. And then one more piece, because I got 21 seconds left, because I'm timing myself here. I want to make sure we get a gig to every household. You can pay for whatever you want to get into your house, but we need to get a gig to every household in America. We're the greatest country on earth. We got to make it happen. And I'm giving you back 2 seconds.
Adam, I'm going to let you drop your mic there when you said, when the hashtag stops trending, what are you going to do? Some amazingly powerful words there, my friend. How about Sine?
So I think one thing that Matt said that can never go away is the way that we have come together as educators across this nation. And it's because we had to. And unfortunately, a pandemic caused us to really turn into each other instead of turning out and looking out for the answers. The answers are right here in this space. If you are an educator in the building, we have the answers to our solutions. And so looking forward, and what really has helped me the most is reaching out for the best ideas and bringing them back and making iterations of those at my campus. And so moving forward with the principal strand, I really want to continue to have those critical conversations about what's working, and let's really have real talk. And just to go along with Adam, like, if equity is not in the center of every conversation, shame on us, because it was there, the inequities were there before. They are never going to go back in and hide away. So we have to make sure that it's the center of every single conversation, not just technology, not just in testing, not just in teaching and learning. Everything that we do in schools, we must look at everything through an equity lens.
So well said. Some real talk right there, Sine. How about Josh?
Well, Adam and Sine just took all my answers. Come on. You know, I think Adam said it best. And one of the things in the library world, you know, literature tends, especially young adult literature, tends to follow the trends of society. So we see more characters, more novels being written by transgender individuals and characters who don't identify as a gender. We see more books coming out addressing Black Lives Matter, police brutality, racial injustice, the political spectrum of our world, whether it's the conservative right or the liberal left. And we see these books being put in our kids' hands. We see books with characters who struggle with eating disorders, who struggle with, you know, OCD. You name the litany of things that are out there that our kids are living and dealing with, and we're seeing those show up in our stories. And so, to Sine's point, is those stories need to be told. They need to be accessible by all of our kids, because again, equity is at the piece, and we have to be real about it. Equity is not just one piece. It's not just checking a box saying I read white fragility in a book study, and now all of a sudden our district is anti-racist, or we're all of a sudden good to go. It goes beyond that, and it starts with us. And in the library, it starts with getting kids that exposure to different ideas outside of their bubble. Not to say their family and their bubble is wrong, but opening that bubble up so they can understand and have that perspective of the world around them. Because I firmly believe literature is the gateway to opening those conversations that change the world.
Wow, some brilliant tidbits there, my friend. So we've got to go. So I'm going to give you opportunity. One final piece of advice here, if we could. We have hundreds of people watching today. Everybody has their own reason for investing their time today to tune into what you all had to say. Give us one piece of advice, 10 seconds or less. One piece of advice that you have for those watching, no matter their role, no matter the environment they find themselves working in today. Josh, we're going to stay with you.
Should be no surprise. My advice is to keep reading and keep talking.
Awesome. Tracy.
My advice is to remember that if a student leaves your room or your room with even one thing that they didn't know before, it has been a successful day, and we need to remember that.
Sine.
Maximize this moment. We are making history.
Adam.
Be the change.
And Matt.
Take care of yourselves.
And Jerry, bring it home.
Take care of the people around you too. You know, like Matt, take care of yourselves, but take care of the people around you.
Wow, wow, wow. If you are watching this webinar and still watching this webinar almost an hour in, I must say, you know why these folks right here are some of the best in the business, some of the hardest working that we see, and represent you all that are working so incredibly hard each and every day. We're proud to have them as strand leaders and leading the way for Future Ready. I do want to remind our viewers that information on Future Ready can be found at futureready.org. We encourage and challenge district superintendents like Matt and Jerry to join over 3,500 others to sign the Future Ready Pledge. I also want to remind viewers of our free virtual workshops and summits for district leaders, principals, instructional leaders, and librarians. You can find our final two for this round, both in January, coming up here in a few weeks at futureready.org/virtual. Make sure to connect with Future Ready on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also find our 4 different podcasts at futureready.org/podcast. And finally, I want to thank Jerry, Sine, Tracy, Matt, Adam, and Josh, as well as thank all of you, our viewers, for joining us for this Future Ready webinar. If you missed any of today's conversation, it's now available on our Future Ready YouTube channel as well. Thank you again for joining us here at Future Ready. Have a fabulous day. Stay healthy and safe. We'll see you next time.